few words. So please, Joanna, now the floor is yours, and then we continue with the webinar.
Okay, thank you. So as some of you know, today is National Students' Day, and all of our colleagues all around the world are celebrating it. Unfortunately, this year is digitalized, it's all online. This day is celebrated to ensure the education around the world for all of the students. And the motto this year is learning about people, the planet, prosperity, and peace. So we as students have the responsibility like never before to contribute to the social life and the social development of our society. So in addition, I can say that also the burden is on us to adapt quickly in these new hectic times. And to find motivation to study and to implement everything in these times. But I think all of us, our students, are ready to take the lead and to concentrate on the everlasting change in the outside world. First, I can say that we have to pass this semester successfully and set new goals for our individual and social success. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Joanna, for your address. I'm very glad that you are today also with us. And now we move forward with the main goal. So today we are actually here to celebrate the entrepreneurship. To introduce you for a little bit, second year in a row, School of Business at the University American College of Skopje is partner of the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and especially this network in North Macedonia. Can you hear me? Yeah, Simona, you have a problem probably. I'm seeing that Tobias confirms that I'm fine. So last year, being a part of this event, we had organized a startup competition, and the students were part of that, and was very interesting competition, I must admit. Simona can also confirm later on. This year, because we are facing with this pandemic crisis, unfortunately, we couldn't do the same. So we'll continue next year, I promise that. This year we have focused on something. Actually, our main goal is to boost inspiration and motivation. So therefore, we have invited a very inspirational speaker. I will introduce you with him in a minute. First of all, now I will invite Simona Chaminska, who is the project coordinator of the Global Entrepreneurship Network in North Macedonia, and the main organizer of this Global Entrepreneurship Week, to introduce you a little bit with this network and with the overall activities here in the North Macedonia. So please, Simona, now the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me now? Yeah? Okay. So thank you very much for the introduction, Snezhana. Can you hear me well?
We are having some echo. I don't know what's wrong. I think that all students, all participants are muted.
She's connected from two places.
You are connected from two places, so please leave one of the places. Maybe your cell phone.
I think it should be okay now.
Now it's perfect. Thank you. Okay. Thank you also for your help.
Yeah, thank you. Technology, you cannot always count on it. So thank you, Snezhana, for having me here. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Global Entrepreneurship Week 2020. It is my great pleasure to greet you as the coordinator of the week. What we are doing here with you is happening in parallel in 180 countries worldwide, and we are part of a family of 20,000 partners that are organizing events in parallel. As a matter of fact, this very same moment, there is a Global Entrepreneurship Week also in Sweden, where Tobias is coming from. I would like to say special thanks to Snezhana, because we started a cooperation with University American College Skopje last year. It was the first time when the university participated at the Global Entrepreneurship Week, and we continued this year. There are 4 global topics that we are discussing during the Global Entrepreneurship Week. One of them is education, entrepreneurial education, and this is exactly the scope of the topic that we will have on today. Other relevant topics are policy making, inclusive entrepreneurship, and ecosystem cooperation, so that all organizations in the ecosystem can connect to help entrepreneurs scale. The goal of the Global Entrepreneurship Week is to celebrate entrepreneurship, and that we make 1 week focused discussions about entrepreneurship so that we can help somehow the ecosystem grow and further develop. So thank you once more. I would like now to give the floor back to Snejana, and I hope we will have a great meeting ahead.
Thank you, Simona. Thank you very much. Actually, our main idea to be active member of this network is coming from the following. We believe that everyone has the potential to become an entrepreneur and to create change in their communities. So basically, what we strive as a business school is to become to be all the time with good, very entrepreneurial educational institution, entrepreneurial university, to inspire young minds to think very creatively, to think beyond themselves, and to nurture their entrepreneurial spirit in everything they do, even in the classroom. So basically, this is our motto today. So now I will just share with you the short biography of our very prominent guest lecturer, Mr. Тобиас Дегсел, and then I will give the floor to him to inspire you. Тобиас Дегсel is the founder and CEO of Combiner, creativity expert, and he has worked for several years as a curator at the Nobel Prize Museum in Stockholm, Sweden, before becoming an entrepreneur. He's passionate about data, and with a rare ability to see the world through patterns, he has given talks around the world which help companies and organizations be more creative around change so they can think and act in new ways. He loves to inspire teams to face reality, problem solve, and come up with innovative solutions. Dear students, dear guests, I will kindly invite you to turn on your cameras and share your warm welcome to Тобиас. So please turn on, all of you, I'm asking you to turn on your cameras. And Sandra can make also a group photo of us to celebrate entrepreneurship this year with this occasion. And now I give the floor to you, Тобиас.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me. This is going to be excellent, and I'm really looking forward to having this kind of discussions together with you and your students.
Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. We really appreciate your time and effort.
And I know that everyone here is super smart, and I know that my intention for this presentation is to push your minds a little bit, and it's going to be a little bit hurtful, but it's going to be good, because I want to create new synapses in your brain, and in order to push innovation and creativity, but also in order to stress what I had before, that I also believe everyone can be an entrepreneur. It's not like a unique thing for a few percentage of the population. It's something for everyone. And I'm going to share a presentation with you later on. Let's see.
Okay, in a minute, please write them in chat box, or finish when Тобиас, or keep them until Тобиас finishes with the presentation. So the plan is that Тобиас to address you for 40 minutes, then you will have time to ask a question. I hope that we will have a fruitful discussion.
Perfect. And I don't know if you don't know me so much. I'm a person that really are into details. I love details. never do things by chance. I am really into details. I also see the world through details. A lot of people, they see the big picture and then they dig into the details. I always start from the details and then I create the big picture. So when I named this short presentation, I decided to name it Ideas, Concept and Reality. And the reason for me choosing this name is I never do things by chance. I'm very well planned. So I believe in order to be successful, it's about almost to be obsessive. A lot of companies and people today, they speak about that you need to be passionate about what you are believing in, that passion is so important. I never understood passion. For me, it was always about obsession. You need to really, really dig into a specific area and work super hard in order to be successful. And I have been obsessed with a lot of different things. When I was a young kid, I collected some information, and when I was a bit older, I collected other information. When I was working for the Nobel Prize Museum, I was obsessed with the Nobel Prize laureates' IDs, because what the Nobel Prize Museum in Stockholm collects is the IDs from the Nobel Prize laureates. And this is very important to stress. When you work within the Nobel Prize system, you don't call them Nobel Prize winners. And why is that? Well, if we start calling those people Nobel Prize winners, then the rest of us are losers because we didn't get a Nobel Prize. And the Nobel Prize is not about winning and losing. It's about creating a better world. Because if you compare the world today with the world in 1901, when they started handing out the Nobel Prize, the world today is a much better place due to the fact that people has created and pushed the development. And that's what the Nobel Prize is all about. It's about creating a better world. And that's why they use the term Nobel Prize laureates, because of course, in one way, they are winners, but they are also allowing everyone to become a winner. They are developing maybe new cancer treatments or whatever. So yes, I think we need to move away from this winning and losing. It's about creating something that is bigger than ourselves. So that's said. And another thing is that I spent many years doing research about those Nobel Prize ideas and concepts. Today, I focus much more on reality. I help companies and organizations in different companies, in different countries, and sometimes there are small startups and sometimes there are really huge tech companies. And I help them to see things in a different way, but I also help them to put that into practice, because that's the toughest part. When I do presentation, often people ask me, can you send us a picture so we know how you look like? And I saw that in the advertising that they did, they used the picture. Sometimes I send people this picture because this is how my brain looks like. I have always been obsessed with a lot of information and data. I see things a lot in black and white. When I went to university, I didn't study business or mathematics. I majored in Scandinavian languages. I'm a linguistic person. I was sitting down at the university analyzing and understanding different names of plants in northern Swedish dialects. And I did some crazy stuff. I was counting those names of plants and I was seeing how many are ending with an ER, with an S, etc. And then I compared that information with Norwegian dialects until the university kicked me out. And this is very important to stress, because I'm obsessed with big data, but I'm not the only one. I had a conversation with one of the big tech companies in the United States, and they told me that they are also obsessed with big data. And we had a very interesting conversation about this, because they told me, and I totally agree, that you can get a lot of info from the big data. You can understand when to do things and how to do things. But something that people often don't get is you will never get the why out from the big data. And a lot of people and organizations and companies, they start to collect a lot of information because they think that by collecting a lot of information, they will get the answer why. But they will not. You will need to start with understanding why are we doing this? And once you have established why you are doing it, then you can start playing with the data. Otherwise, you will become like data hoarders, all those people that collect stuff and don't know what to do with it. It's fairly useless, almost like when I was collecting linguistic patterns. If we don't connect the information, it's fairly useless. And it's not always about having the most data. It's about on how to use the data. And going back to the going back to details, I would love to be together with you in North Macedonia, but unfortunately there are travel restrictions. But I wanted to feel that I a little bit belong to you, so I zoomed in on Google Earth, and so I can see where the building is. And once again, I love details. Another detail is that if you Google, for example, the Nobel Prize, and you put what kind of pictures do you get, you will see this, like a lot of golden medallions with the picture of Alfred Nobel, which is the founder of the Nobel Prize, but he was also an entrepreneur. But the thing with the Nobel Prize, I don't look upon the Nobel Prize as a golden medallion. I don't look upon it as this old people coming to Sweden to receive this golden medallion from the Swedish king. I don't care about golden medallions, and I don't care so much about the Swedish king. For me, the Nobel Prize is about something completely different. This is, for me, not representing the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize is about this. It's about people. This is a picture taken in Belgium in 1929. It was 2027. There are 29 people in this picture. Out of them, 17 received a Nobel Prize. So in the same picture, maybe you see you have Albert Einstein, but you also have Marie Curie, or as she's called in Poland, Maria Skłodowska. You have Niels Bohr from Denmark. You have Schrödinger, etc. And this is how I view the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize is not about gold, it's about people. And if you put all the Nobel Prize laureates, all the data in your head, and you don't need to do that because I've already done that, you will see some very interesting patterns, because there are things that connects each and every Nobel Prize laureate. And one of those things is creativity. And since I'm a little bit obsessed with words, when I stumbled upon this, I wanted to understand what is creativity. So I asked a lot of people, very smart people, researchers, can you please define what it is? Is this important for you and your organization? And everyone told me creativity is super important. You know, World Economic Forum, they have this list of like skills that are going to be super important for the future. And one of the words on that list is creativity. And then I told them, well, maybe I'm a little bit stupid, but I don't get it. What is it? And then people told me, you know, it's about thinking differently, thinking outside the box. And I said, really? Thinking outside the box, thinking differently? Thinking differently is something that everyone can do. Everyone thinks a little bit different. It can't just be just thinking different. It's not, because creativity, it's like the golden medallion. It's a double-sided coin. It's the ability to think in a new and unique way, which is something that every human being has the capacity to do, but it's also the ability to execute your idea. And that's the toughest part. It's 50-50. It's the ability to think, 50%, but it's also the ability to execute that idea, 50%. Those are equally important. And people have a hard time with the execution part. And that's why the Nobel Prize is interesting, because if you look upon the Nobel Prize laureates, you will see that they have all managed to think in a new way, and they have executed their idea. So a Nobel laureate, for example, in literature, starts with an idea. Maybe it's fun to write a book. And those person actually wrote the book. And it was a good book. It's quite hard to do that. Then later on, they got that book published, they got nominated, and eventually, hopefully, they got themselves a Nobel Prize. But you have the same thing, for example, in the Nobel Prize in medicine. It starts with an idea, researchers, they maybe have started with the idea, is it possible to develop a new kind of cancer treatment? And then they spend years of hard work doing research, developing the cancer treatment. So once again, the Nobel Prize is not about golden medallions, it's about success stories on how to drive innovation and creativity. And I think by having 962 of Nobel Prize laureates, it's quite intriguing to see what can you do when you start playing with the data. So creativity is something that is super important if you want to become like a Nobel laureate, but it's also equally important if you want to be an entrepreneur. Because as an entrepreneur, you could have a great business idea, but if you can't execute that idea, you are not creative, you are not successful, and you will never become an entrepreneur. So once again, you see the similarity here. This is super important. And how do we do that then? What kind of skills are important to foster this creativity or this entrepreneurial mindset? Well, something that we need to stress from the beginning, there are some researchers today that still preaches that creativity or entrepreneurship is for a very few special people. I met an American researcher, a professor. He was really super smart. He had a list on his desk of 5 people. Those were the 5 people during the history of mankind who has been truly creative. And of course, I was a little bit curious about that list. So when he went to the men's room, I went to his desk and I read the names on his list. And what was interesting for me was there were 5 names, 5 guys. They were Leonardo da Vinci, they were like Albert Einstein. And when he came back, I asked him, how do you come up with this list? And he said, yeah, you know, in order to be creative, you have to think in a new and unique way, and you have to execute the idea. Most people, they combine old stuff, and then it's not new. So you need to start from nothing and create something new. And if you have that kind of definition, of course, then you will get a very short list, because in reality, often when you do new stuff, you are using things that are already existing, but you are putting them in a new way. So that's more like a linguistic problem. He's not alone. There are some still people preaching this. Most researchers today, though, say that everyone can be creative. It's in our DNA. It's something that is very typical for the human being. We are never, ever satisfied. We want to improve. We want to do new stuff. And this is something that you can push. And I believe everyone could be an entrepreneur, and I can also believe everyone could show creativity. But if I tell you the truth, I think when I analyze people today, most people are not entrepreneurs and they are not creative. And why is that? Well, in order to be creative or an entrepreneur, you need risk. You need to dare to take risk. And the problem with this is that our brains, have not developed in the same phase as technology. Our brains are very similar to the brains human beings had like 10,000 years ago. And we fear risk, which is very normal, because 10,000 years ago, if you took too much risk, maybe you died. Maybe you stumbled upon a crazy animal and the crazy animal ate you. So you fear risk. And when you push people to do something new, they are so afraid of failing, so they do nothing. It's almost that they think that they are going to die. And then I tell people the chance of dying today is very low. So they will not be like this strange animal and come and eat you. You can take small risk, because without risk, no progress. And that's also one of the purpose with this presentation today. I want you to push yourself, because I think by pushing people, you can help them to develop these kind of skills. when I was still working for the Nobel Prize Museum as a curator, I think most museums are very, very boring. They are like boring exhibitions that you don't understand. I love words, so I was painting words on the museum floor. So this is actually a picture from the museum floor. And those words that I painted on the museum floor were not like choices of mine, because I spoke to the Nobel Prize laureates and I asked them about the creative process, and I asked them what kind of skills are then super important if you want to be successful. And a lot of Nobel laureates, they highlight persistency. And I think this is very important to stress, especially today, because everyone is speaking about technologies like moving so fast. We need to work super fast and hard, and we need to show results within like 2 or 3 or 5 weeks. And the Nobel Prize laureates told me that if you are targeting really, really complicated stuff, it doesn't take 5 weeks. It takes a very long time. You need to be super persistent. Maybe you know about this Nobel laureate in physics, Higgs. He got the Nobel Prize for this Higgs boson. When he's starting doing research about the Higgs boson, he couldn't prove it. He could prove it in a theoretical way, but not in a practical way. So the other researchers told him, you will not ever be able to prove this, so please change research field, because this is interesting, but you will not be able to prove this in practice. So change area. He didn't. He stuck to this area, and after 20 years, they created this CERN in Switzerland, where they collided the bosons and they proved that his theory was right. If he had given up after 5 or 6 weeks, we wouldn't know about it. So once again, persistency is something that we can all learn from the Nobel Prize laureates. But if it was only about persistency, then it would be super easy. And life is not super easy. So I painted a lot of words on the museum floor, and I made a list for you. And this is actually quite interesting, because other words that I painted was communication. And why is communication so important? Well, because when I spoke to the Nobel Prize laureates, they told me it's not about being the smartest person in the room. You can be super smart, but if you can't communicate so other people understand what you want to achieve, you will probably not succeed. I met a big tech company in Silicon Valley a couple of years ago, and I was speaking to the CEO about this, and they were investing so much money into research. And I asked him, oh, I love research. What are you doing research about? And then he told me, well, I'm just the CEO. I'm not a researcher, so I don't know. I was like, well, that's actually a big problem, because you're investing so much money into something. And even if you don't know all the details, you need to know something. Otherwise, you are fairly useless. Maybe you should use some of the money to invest into communication. Some laureates say it's about the importance of having a clear why, a clear vision. And a lot of organizations and companies today, they are using, we want to be sustainable, we want to be innovative, or whatever. Using those very abstract words that they don't define, which no one actually gets. And by having those very abstract words, the problem with that is that then every person within an organization will interpret it in a different way. And then it's impossible almost to work together. You need to break those visions down in a very simple way, so everyone needs to understand, why are we doing this? It's about hard work, yes, but it's also about gathering the right competence. And this is really a little bit tricky, because what's the right competence? Is it the same as 20 years ago? Is it going to be the same next year? This is going to change. It's about asking questions. Einstein loved to ask questions, but it's also about being disrespectful. And disrespect is one of my favorite words. And I'm not telling you that you should be disrespectful to other people, but I'm actually stressing that you should be disrespectful to other people's ideas. And that's a completely different thing. It used to be the fact that for many, many years ago, people thought that if you stressed too much, you got ulcer. So there was this big medical industry, a lot of medical doctors going to big conferences all over the world, speaking about the connection between stress and ulcer. And then there was this medical researcher, Barry Marshall in Australia, He thought, no, it can't be. Stress is not causing ulcer. Stress is caused by a bacteria, and he wanted to test it. So he grew this bacteria in a jar, and he wanted to give this liquid to the rats. But he was not allowed to do that because everyone know that the stress was causing ulcer. And since he was not allowed to do this on the rats, he brought the jar back home and he drank the bacteria, and he got ulcer. And of course, this changed a lot. A big industry of people going around telling people that ulcer was caused by stress needed to disappear. And a lot of people didn't become super happy. But I prefer to live in a world that is built upon knowledge and fact and not just feelings. We need people that can challenge ideas. It's not the same thing as challenging other people. And the problem with this world is when you start doing this, a lot of people will be very angry because when you're questioning their ideas, they say, "Do you questioning me?" You need to know, "I'm questioning your idea," but they identify themselves with an idea. So this is tricky. But this is super important. It's also about contacts if you want to succeed, but it's not only about contacts. It's about courage, it's about playfulness, it's also on how to combine. Because this is also very, very interesting. When people are allowed to choose themselves, they hang around with similar people. So people that are really persistent, they tend to like other people that are also very persistent. People that are really good in communication, they hang around with other people that are good in communication. Disrespectful people tend to hang around with other disrespectful people. And the problem is when we always hang around with similar people is that we start thinking in a very similar way, and that's not very good. So the secret sauce to success is not amongst those words that I painted on the museum floor. The secret word, and I was not allowed to paint this on the museum floor, is about this. It's about collaboration. And this is very obvious if you start looking at the Nobel Prize. A majority of the Nobel Prizes goes to 2 or 3 people. It never goes, or very seldom, to one person. It's almost always, especially in science, to 2 or 3 people, and they can't give it to 4 or 5 people according to very old rules. And most people, they are not obsessed with the Nobel Prize, so they don't care. They think, okay, now we have the Nobel Prize in physics, 3 people, they must be super smart and they're really good in physics. But if you start analyzing the data, you will see it's very common. You have 2 people really good in physics working with someone that is really good in chemistry. Maybe some of them are really good in communication, working with someone who is really good in persistency or disrespect. Because once again, when people are allowed to choose themselves, we hang around with similar people. So collaboration is not enough. We need to push the envelope when it comes to collaboration. And that's why diversity is so important. And this is also a big mistake because a lot of people, when you speak about diversity, they think that diversity is about boys and girls or people that have different colors. It's not. It's about perspectives. Because it's about bringing people with unique experience that can provide you a different perspective. It could be like a 70-year-old boy, but it can also be like an 80-year-old girl or whatever. But it's not tied to how we look. It's tied to who we are. And we need to see beyond the human package in order to embrace diversity, because diversity is going to be crucial in the future. Because the opposite to diversity is you only to have one perspective. And then you need to be completely sure that that only perspective is the correct one. And speaking about risk, I would never risk that. It's about finding people that can always see things from a different perspective. And now this starts to be a little bit more complicated, because why are most collaboration things failing? Well, because they don't get diversity, and another thing, they don't trust each other. Most people don't trust other people, and you especially don't trust people that are different from yourself. And if we're continuing by doing this, we will have major problems, because the secret sauce to collaboration will always be trust. And this is not just me saying. I think it was Google who ran this research program called Aristoteles many years ago, and they established that the key factor for success was trust. And how do we create trust amongst people? This is a little bit tricky, because you can do it in one way when you are meeting each other, and it's a little bit more complicated to create trust when we are only meeting like here, like in a digital way. But we need to target this issue, because otherwise we will have some major problems. Going back to this ideas, concept, and reality, it says ideas, and then you need to start digging into this, speaking about details, and start asking yourselves, where do all ideas come from? And someone really smart once said that ideas come from curiosity. When I did these kind of presentations with the live audience, I was always asking the audience, who said this? And like 99% of the people listening said, oh, it's Albert Einstein. I said, no, it's not Albert Einstein. Because this is Walt Disney. And why is this so important? Well, not all people will receive a Nobel Prize. And it's not just about Nobel Prizes. There are a lot of smart people out there. Walt Disney never received a Nobel Prize, but he's still successful anyway. And he stresses a very important thing, curiosity. We need to push curiosity all the time. And it may sound very easy, but it's actually quite hard to continuously being curious. Otherwise, it's so easy to become happy and fat. And it's always about pushing yourself. So after working for the Nobel Museum for 4 years, I decided I wanted to leave. So I went to my director and I told him, I want to quit. I'm bored. And he said to me, I don't want you to quit. And what do you want to do? Oh, I would like to continue analyzing data. I would like to take all the Nobel Prize data and play around with it in my head. And he said, that's crazy. And then he said, okay, let's do it like this. If you're continuing doing the same thing you did before, you can do this also. And I'm actually a little bit stupid. So he tricked me into doing 2 jobs, and I got paid for one, but I don't care. I would have had some time, especially during evenings and nights, to analyze data. And I wanted to understand which places in the world has produced the largest number of Nobel Prize laureates. So I did some research, and I realized that the most successful university in the world when it comes to producing Nobel Prize laureates is not in the United States. It's in UK. This is Cambridge. They have 110 out of 962 Nobel Prize laureates, which made me super curious. And I thought, what are they doing differently? Are they feeding those people something? Or is it something with the boats and water and the old houses? So I went there and I asked them, what is the secret sauce? And they looked upon me as if I was crazy, and they told me, don't you know that we are like 800 years old? When Isaac Newton became professor in physics or mathematics, we were like 400 years old. They are British people, so they told me we are like 800 years ahead of anyone else in the world, which is quite funny because that's British humor. And I told them, it can't just be old tradition, because then every old university in the world out there would be successful. Then the Italy Bologna University would be very successful, and they have 0 Nobel Prize laureates. And we had a very interesting conversation about this, because they told me, well, tradition helps, but it's not enough. We have this beautiful university with this beautiful building, but we have faced the same problem as anyone else. In one house, we have the physics department. In another house, we have the business department. In a third house, we have the chemistry department. A lot of smart people sitting together with similar people, and they don't want to interact. So what we invented was something that we call the high table dinners. There are 5-hour dinners that you need to show up. If you get an invitation, you need to be there. And during those 5-hour dinners, you are not allowed to choose who you will sit next to, because Cambridge loves to play with people. So sometimes they take a professor in quantum physics and put him next to, for example, a person with a background in Scandinavian languages. And this is actually interesting, because what's happening during those dinners is you need to admit that quantum physics is not my expertise. So you are going to talk about this all night, and please use very simple words, because maybe I'm a little bit stupid. But this professor in quantum physics maybe doesn't know anything about Swedish language, and he feels also equally stupid. During those dinners, a lot of stupid questions are asked, but not all of those questions are stupid. It opens up for seeing things from different perspectives, and you actually get to know each other, and you can help each other. And then after those dinners, you're allowed to sit together with similar people once again. But on a regular, frequent basis, they push people together. And that's the secret sauce to success. And this is not only specific for universities, this is also something that's happening amongst private companies. So when I was searching for which private companies has produced the largest number of Nobel Prize laureates, one of them is Bell Labs in the United States. This is an amazing company. They have produced every technical thing that is of importance. They have created the transistor. Without transistors, no computers. The CCD sensors. Without them, no digital photos. The lasers, the fiber optics. Without fiber optics, no internet. Everything can be tracked back to one company. And they were not 800 years old. So when they were going to create their new headquarters in the 50s, they went around the globe and they wanted to understand, how shall we do it? How can we create the best system, the best company in the world? So they went, of course, to many universities, Harvard and Cambridge and the brilliant ones, and I said, one thing that most universities fail on is that they are recruiting a lot of smart people, researchers, and they are really good in thinking, but not so good in executing their ideas. So we as a company, we of course need researchers. They are super important, but we also need engineers, people that can put it together. They are also super important. So we will recruit researchers and engineers, and we will not put the engineers in one house and the researchers in another house. We'll put them together in small labs. So inside this building, they had small labs, and maybe there were 5 researchers and 10 engineers, and they were working together. And this is brilliantly designed by a Finnish architect called Eero Saarinen. So he was a little bit mean. So if you wanted to have your morning coffee or lunch, if you were unlucky, you needed to walk for 1.5 kilometers. And that was on purpose, because he wanted people to bump into each other. Because during those collisions, new ideas were born, and this became hugely successful. And for me, this is very important to stress, because today when we speak about business and creativity and innovation, no one speaks about universities and no one speaks about Bell Labs, and everyone is speaking about the tech companies in the United States like Google and Apple or Amazon or whatever. And I can tell you a secret. I've been working together with this company, and people say, oh, this is a great company, you get free cake if you work there, you can do whatever, they have colorful bicycle stands. If you work for Google in Zurich, for example, you get free beer 24/7, but it's not about the free beer, and it's not about the colorful bicycle stand. I saw a very clear pattern when I was working together with them. It's about the people. They don't care if you are 17 years old, or if you are 70. They don't care if you are from Sweden or North Macedonia or India. They don't care if you are a boy or a girl or something in between. They understand it could be a junior person having a great idea, it could be a senior person having a great idea. Same thing with Bell Labs. They didn't care if you are a researcher or engineer. And actually the same thing at Cambridge. They don't care if you are the professor or the gardener or a student. They understand that all those people are needed, and they can provide a different perspective. And that's the secret sauce to success. And this, speaking about details, we're having this webinar, and I think it's going quite okay. People tend to think that every smart stuff is created by some kind of entrepreneur. This is very important to stress, that sometimes it could be someone else creating a smart thing. So the first webcam was not created by a business. It was created at Cambridge, actually, by researchers. And those were lazy researchers because no one wanted to go to the coffee room and to fill up the coffee. So they installed the camera, the first webcam, in order to know when is the coffee ready. And that was the embryo to the webcam, developed by researchers. And the embryo then later on grown, and today we are using tools like Zoom or Teams or whatever in order to be successful. So you need to understand what this is all about. I think it's also showing you coffee. It's time for a small break and see if there is any questions. So I will stop sharing and see if there is any questions that we can talk about.
Dear audience, do you have any question for a moment? I can see one question that was posted in chat. It's from Vladimir Trajkovic. He's asking, who are the other 3 people from the list that you mentioned?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was like Da Vinci, it was Shakespeare, it was Einstein. I think it was, I actually can't remember those 2 others. So Shakespeare, Da Vinci, Einstein. I will get back to you to tell you who the other ones were.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Do you have any question now, or you want to keep them for the end?
You will not die. You will not risk dying by asking a question. I tell you, it's not going to happen. So no one will die if you ask a question.
Actually, we are having, this happens always. I'm sure that the students have questions, but they don't have always courage to ask. I don't know why. I'm still trying to find the answer of this question. So yes, be free to ask. We are here to exchange ideas. So whatever you think, as Tobias said, no, there is no question that is a stupid question. So please be free to ask questions now or later on. I have another question in chat box. Shall I keep that for the end, Tobias?
No, you can go ahead and ask.
Yeah. The question is the following. I am wondering how we'll be creating Lego ducks this time.
Yeah, that would be excellent, and if we could, but then then you need to have like Lego packages, and I couldn't send it to you for this COVID situation. So I hope I will see some of you in the future, and then together we will create Lego ducks. And I will explain the Lego ducks and the Lego bricks for those of you who doesn't understand what it's all about, because
I forgot to mention that also Tobias is very passionate for Lego bricks.
Yeah,
at the beginning.
Because I think it's about breaking down things in smaller bricks, and it's about combining those bricks in different combinations. So often when I do like live workshops, I allow the participants to create stuff together with me on Lego. And then we use 6 bricks, and I present it as a competition, and then people are supposed to create a duck, and those ducks will look very much different. But the thing is that 6 pieces of Lego, those 6 pieces can be 500,000 different solutions.
500,000?
Combine
wow.
500,000 different solutions. And then you need to take the next thing. If people are much more complicated than bricks of Lego, what happens if you bring 6 people together and start combining? That's where the magic happens. You don't need to be like 20,000 people. You need to find people, because just one brick, that's boring. But a couple of bricks and start combining them, then the magic happens. And it's almost like building with Lego. You need to find what are the other bricks that I need in order to be successful. But unfortunately, we are not going to create any Lego ducks today, but hopefully in the future.
Okay, I have... we have another question from Alexandra, and then I have 2 more questions in chat box. But first, I give the floor to Alexandra. Can you hear me, Alexandra? Yeah, okay.
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me? Snezana?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Perfect,
Hello,
perfect.
Tobias. How are you? How is it in Stockholm today?
Well, the weather is a little bit gray, but it's okay.
It's okay, it's acceptable. Okay, we are very happy to have you again here. Excellent presentation. As always, we've enjoyed it very much. I have many questions, but maybe to start with this one. Yeah, nowadays, I mean, in this globalized world, there are so many topics that people there are two topics that now are joining the researchers, the practitioners, the businesses, the faculties, education, etc. And that's digitalization and green economy. And there is much focus put on the need to have interdisciplinary teams when people working together to try to solve or to give a solution to global and to complex challenges that the whole world is facing. And you very interestingly mentioned in your presentation not so much about the necessity to have multidisciplinary teams, but to have teams constructed of people that have different perspectives. So when we see multidisciplinary team, then it might be easier, especially for decision makers, especially for the administration, for institutions, we're creating teams that are going to tackle different issues than to check, to go through a checkbox, whether we have a researcher, whether we have engineer, whether we have a digital specialist, innovation specialist, whether we have someone environmentalist, etc. But how do you succeed in putting a team together that has a different perspective? How can you check a priori, prior, whether people are having different perspectives, and how can you actually ensure that that happens when you put people together to work in a team, especially important when we speak about tackling global challenges? Thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. And I will talk about on how on this, how to create transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary teams later on also. But the secret sauce is also understanding that it's about, there is no like silver bullet on actually how to do it, but it's like, this is something that you need to embrace all the time. You need to understand that in order to be successful or to solve some of those really, really important tasks that we are having in front of us, it's not a one-man show. It's about providing different perspectives. And that's actually what the multidisciplinary teams is all about. And the problem with society today is that people identify themselves too much with their own egos. So you often, when you try to do that, you have like someone that is really, really good in chemistry, and he or she believes that chemistry is the most important subject in the world. And then they bring someone that is really, really good in business, and they think that business is the secret sauce to everything. And once again, it's establishing smaller units of people. Let's move away from all those titles, and let's understand what we need is people that has the capacity, the understanding of building things that are bigger than themselves. And those teams doesn't need to last forever, but they need to be very open, almost like a network, allowing people to participate in this, so we don't get a situation when we have we and them. That's what's happening in society, in the world today, that we have more and more people that feel left out, and it's we and them, and that is actually going to be super dangerous. In order to be successful in every area that lays ahead of us, is the focusing on collaboration and focusing on perspectives. And once again, by sometimes using complicated words like multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary, then people don't get it and they feel excluded. It doesn't mean that everyone should join in all the time, but I think that we need to open up and broaden up that, so we make sure that we have the diversity in our teams, and then it's not like a permanent position. It's something that is going to change over time.
Thank you very much, Tobias.
Thank you, Alexandra. And I have 3 more super interesting questions here for Tobias. The first one is from from Irina Yanevska. I apologize. She's asking how to create entrepreneurs in public institutions. Any existing programs we can advocate for? So this question first, and then I will share the other 2, okay?
This is a very good question. So I've been actually working a lot with on how to do this in practice, and I can tell you an interesting story. I was running this entrepreneurial program for some of the Scandinavian banks, and they wanted to create an entrepreneurial mindset within the organization because they really understood that the power within the banks in the future is going to be connected to smart people within the bank. But when they were trying to design this program, we did it as like an 8-week course. I didn't do it myself. I did it together with some really smart serial entrepreneurs. And when we did it, we did a huge mistake, as I see it, because at the end, when I was looking for the data, I could see that we had maybe like 3,000 or 4,000 employees attending this program. But if you looked upon the data, they were mostly guys. And I said, this is a huge mistake. I said, no, it's great. We have like thousands of people participating. Well, don't you know there are more women than guys working in banks today? So this is wrongly designed. We are somehow excluding a majority of the employees. And when I said that to those serial entrepreneurs, they told me, well, we don't want to change. We are getting so much money, so don't fix it. It's not broken. We don't fix it. And I said, no, it can't be like this. So I decided to leave this program because for me, if you want to create intrapreneurs or entrepreneurs, we need to break down what it's actually all about. And what is the definition of an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur? That's a person. It's a human being that has the capacity to think in a new way, but also to execute. Also telling people the understanding that it's not a solo show. It's something you need to work together. You need structures. And yes, you can create that type of structures within organizations. That's what I try to do when I'm not lecturing. Then I help companies almost to create guerrilla structures within big companies. And there is, once again, not one secret bullet on how to do it. Something that I've seen that has been very successful if you want to in a big company is that if you try to create it outside the big company, maybe as a separate company or in another building, because if you try to build this entrepreneur journey within an existing company, the traditional structures is not emphasizing the change, because they will see that this entrepreneurial mindset will almost be like a virus. They will try to defend themselves. And once again, you need to make this virus grow in a safe environment, and then you inject it to the big companies. But that's a very good question, and I don't want to get stuck in details, but there are ways to do it in a smart way. But then you need people that can see things from another perspectives. Most organizations try to build their own entrepreneurial journey, and I think that is not going to happen. They need external help to do it, because otherwise they will not succeed.
Okay, just don't mention viruses.
No, viruses is not.
Okay, just a small joke. Yeah, okay. So Dimitar is asking, how do you organize the data that you are collecting? What is your system to find the connection between in a large amount of data?
Well, first of all, I need to tell you that I think that. Of course, I use some digital programs to do it, but also I think that I know for a fact that I think that my brain is a little bit broken. So I think that my brain view data in a completely different way. So for me, it's not so complicated. When I put information into my head, I see the patterns, and I used to think that everyone was could do the same thing, and today I understand that I think my brain works in a little bit different way, which is sometimes a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. My brain is not the normal brain, so it's a little bit different, and it's not so easy. Once again, I think it's so important once again to highlight that if you want to do it for real, you need to embrace people that are truly different, and you shouldn't be so scared about people that doesn't function in a normal way, because it's not, even if you, for example, work, it's not disease. You will not get my brain if you work together with me, so it doesn't affect your brain. It would together, the combination is very, very successful. But once again, using a couple of smart digital tools, and then I use my traditional analog brain.
Okay, thank you. We have another curiosity here, and I'm very glad. And it's coming from Brankica Miladinova. She's asking, you mentioned bigger companies like Google, Cambridge, and so on. But in your opinion, do you believe that smaller organizations today are willing to risk it all or they prefer calculated risk?
That's
Is it clear?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And you can break it down, because I think the problem with really big organizations, there is a reason for them being very big, because they have, maybe in the beginning they took a lot of risk and then they became very successful, but they also created a system that doesn't allow them to take too much risk. So it's easier within a smaller company to take risk, because you don't have so many employees and maybe you're not like on the stock yet, etc. So it's a little bit easier for a smaller company to do it, but it's also a little bit more tricky, because as a smaller company, you don't have the same funding, you don't have the same network, you don't have the same numbers of employee. And I did another presentation earlier today about Sweden Innovation Days, speaking about we need to understand that it's not big companies versus small companies, startups. We need to look upon this much more as an ecosystem and see the benefits. What is the benefit of being very small and a startup? What is the benefit of being a big company? What is the obstacles being a small company? What's the obstacle of being like a startup? And how can we help each other in a much smarter way? Because sometimes you need smaller units to access an area, and sometimes you need a big unit. So you can't, once again, it's not going to be that the startup scene will solve every problem, but the big companies will not solve every problem. It's when they start working much more together.
Okay, so I have two more questions to pose you, Tobias. I don't know how much time you need for the rest of your presentation, so please share so I can organize.
Let's like this. I can say, let's save the questions so I can finish up, because I think some of the questions will be answered in the second part of the presentation. And then let's save some time at the end. So if I don't answer those questions, I will get back to them. Is that okay?
Okay, very, very fine.
Perfect. Questions. I would like to say something also, because I've been speaking about the human part of this, but I think that it's very important to stress the technology part of this also, because otherwise you will probably get lost. So when I decided to leave the Nobel Foundation and the Nobel system, I spent many years understanding the human aspect of innovation, but I wanted to explore the technology aspect of this. And to tell you the truth, I have always been interested in technology, even since I was a young child. And I often use this picture because I think this is very, very nice. I remember when I'm 46 years old. I remember when I was 8 years old, it was 1982, my father bought the first home computer to our family. And I was 8 years old, I was a boy, I was really looking forward to a computer. I heard some rumors about gaming that computer that my father brought to me in 1982 was not a gaming computer. It was a big calculator. It was a typewriter. I was so disappointed until I realized if I wanted the game, I needed to create the game myself. And the funny part is that it was not only my father that bought a computer in 1982. The Swedish government subsidized for the whole population in Sweden that they could buy computers to a very low price to spread this knowledge to the population. And that was very, very important, because when many people got access to this technology, a lot of stuff started happening. And it was the same thing with the internet. When I was at university in 1992, it was the first time I stumbled upon the internet. In the beginning, it was like small rooms at the university with some computers, and we had some access, limited access to internet. And I was curious. I went to those computers. And to tell you the truth, I didn't understand everything. I thought it was interesting, but I didn't get it. But I was not the only one. There were a lot of people accessing those computers. And more people and students started to play around with the internet. It was the same thing with the computers. When more people started to use it, stuff happens. And today, a lot more people use computers and internet, etc. And they have developed a lot of smart stuff like music and films or companies, etc. And some people today, they argue that this is great because technology is going to save us all. We are going to connect everything. We are going to use big data, AI, etc. We will use this information to send people to Mars, etc. And sometimes these may sound very like strange or crazy, almost like science fiction. And I often say that I'm not an expert in all those technologies, but I'm quite good in Nobel Prize laureates. And maybe some of those businesses sounds like science fiction, but so do some of the research. This year, when they announced the Nobel Prize in Physics, it went to researchers for working with the black holes. That also sounds like science fiction. It's not. That's Nobel Prize in Physics 2020. It also went to women for the CRISPR-9 technology, DNA, cutting the DNA. That also sounds like science fiction. It's not. That's research. That's already here. So when people say, oh, no, that's impossible, it didn't work like 5 years ago. Well, technology and research is pushing the envelope. So we need to be very careful when they say it's impossible. And we need to reevaluate, because this kind of speed that is happening both in research and technology is going to affect us all. And I love this slide, because I think this summarizes what it's all about. Because today when I help companies, sometimes they bring me in and they say, can we pick your brain? We want to see how you look at this. And sometimes I said, I can do it for you. So I went to Germany 2 or 3 years ago, and I met all the biggest owners of the hotels in the world. And I didn't understand what they wanted, but they wanted to pick my brain. And after doing that for a day, I asked them, why are you just bringing me? Why are you not bringing like students? Why are you not bringing like startups? And what they told me is that, oh, we don't need other people. We need you. I said, why don't you need other people? But because they don't know anything about our business, they are a little bit stupid. And I told you, that's the biggest mistake you can have. Because often you think when you are within an area or you are an expert in a specific field, that people that don't understand your field are stupid. People are not stupid. People outside your ecosystem are not stupid. Disruption very seldom happens in your own ecosystem. Going back to the big companies, they don't want to risk because they are already too happy and fat. Disruption happens outside your own ecosystem. For example, when it comes to like hotels, it was Airbnb. It was not created by the hotel chains. Same thing with like with TV. It was not the TV channels that created YouTube. And when that hit, from the beginning, they thought that's low quality, it's not going to work. And then suddenly more people are watching YouTube than traditional television. And it was not developed by the industry. And this is not only for business, this is also very relevant for society. We have all been having this discussion about the American election, I guess, all over the world. How how could Trump win this election, or no, did he win, or whatever? Or why did the British people leave the European Union, the Brexit? Are they stupid? People are not stupid, but if they feel left out, then it could be very dangerous, and they could do very dangerous stuff. Because when people feel desperate, they can do whatever. And I think in order to prevent your own business or society to be disrupted, we need to break down those silos. And that's why I use this picture. This is a picture from Stockholm. It's a beautiful town. If you haven't been here, so you need, once the travel restrictions are lifted, come and visit me in Stockholm, because we are doing a lot of interesting stuff here. A lot of interesting startups and scale-ups and big companies and universities. And people say, oh, that's a beautiful city. You have the water and the islands and the trees and the museums. So yeah, it's a beautiful city, but it's not about the islands and the trees. The secret sauce to success is in this picture. Because Stockholm as a city is a city built upon different islands. It's not about the islands, it's about the bridges. If I want to create something smart, then Sweden is very nice, because people don't care so much about hierarchies. They don't care so much about titles. If I want to create like a tech thing, then I go to the Stockholm School of Engineering and I grab some smart people. The problem with them is that they don't know anything about business. Then I need to take that group of people and I bring them to the Stockholm School of Economics. They are really good in business, but they don't have the money. So then I bring those engineers and those business students to the companies which are located outside Stockholm, because they have the money. And in a time where people are saying we need more regulations and more walls, that's stupid. The future is not about the walls and regulations. The future is about bridges. And the good thing about bridges that are not just existing here in Stockholm or in Sweden, we have bridges everywhere. When I went into the Google Earth once again, I saw that in Skopje you have also bridges. And what I want you to establish is, you know about the Pavlov's dogs, he was ringing the bell and the dogs, you started drooling. I don't want you to start drooling, but I want you to understand, every time you see a bridge, I want you to start thinking, what kind of bridges has I created or repaired or destroyed since the last time I saw a bridge? Because the future will not be about regulations, it will be about bridges. And those people that has a capacity to create them or repair them or do smart stuff with the bridges. So keep in mind the bridges. Also, understanding that the risk, yes, there is always a risk, but the risk of dying is very low. And maybe you could stay away from those things that actually could make you die and do other stuff instead. I think it's about understanding research, it's about understanding on how people learn. We learn from failure. That's how young children learn, that's how we should start learning as an adults also. And we should also use the knowledge from science, so we do it in a very organized way. And that's why I love experimentation, because you do a test, you collect the data, you measure, you see what the outcome is. Without predicting what will happen. After finishing my position at the Nobel Prize Museum, I decided let's stay away from the Nobel Prize, and I wanted to explore something else. And then I stumbled upon something called the IG Nobel Prize, which is not a Nobel Prize. It's like a funny prize created in the United States at Harvard. It goes to researchers from all over the world once a year, to researchers that makes research that make people first laugh and then think. And in 2000, a couple of researchers, they thought that having those meetings, going to meetings all the time, it's a little bit boring. And this was before the COVID, so they didn't experience all the digital meetings, which are also super boring. And they said, let's do something fun. Wouldn't it be fun to have like living animals flying around in the room? And they decided, let's do it. Let's not just think it, let's do it. They put metals in the wall, they fed those frog magnets, and they made those frogs levitate. And then people said, no, that's crazy, you shouldn't feed frog magnets. And I said, this is actually interesting. What can we learn from this? Could we feed small children or old people? Could this be the future of transportation? I don't know. But the thing is that one of those people feeding the frog magnets, receiving the Ig Nobel Prize, he also came to Stockholm in 2010 to receive the real Nobel Prize. And how did he do that? Well, he used Scotch tape and he used a piece of carbon graphite. And by using tape, Scotch tape and carbon, they developed a one atom thin carbon layer called graphene, which is the strongest material in the world today, stronger than diamond. And today we can build microchips and different nanomaterial. This is going to be crazy. And when he said, how did he succeed doing it? Because he used experimentation. He played with frogs, he played with carbon. Same thing. One thing led to the Ig Nobel Prize, another thing led to the real Nobel Prize. And when he had his thank you speech here in Stockholm, he said that human progress has always been driven by a sense of adventure and unconventional thinking. It's so easy to get stuck in how we should do it and what is the smartest way, etc. We need to explore and we need to push this unconventional thinking. And speaking about these days, I've been digging into this Ig Nobel Prize for a while now. And this is the prize award ceremony 2 years ago at the Harvard University. And they are announcing who will get this Ig Nobel Prize. But you see this silver guy in the corner. That's a guy who invented the human torchlight, which is like he painted himself in silver and he's holding a torchlight. And then people think, oh, that's a crazy guy. He shouldn't be allowed to participate. But that guy is not only crazy, he's also brilliant. Because that guy is this guy. And this guy was one of the people developing 3D printing. So once again, be very careful when you call people crazy. Because yes, they could be a little bit crazy, but we need a little bit crazy people because they are pushing the envelope. And if you exclude them because they are painting themselves in silver, maybe you exclude 3D printing. That's dangerous. Going back to this picture and going back to the details, this is something that I don't like. I have circled this everything is digital era because that's a big mistake. People tend to think about digitalization and technology as something that is going to replace the whole society. Almost when you study history, you went from hunters to farmers, and from farmers to industrialization, and from industrialization to digitalization. That's incorrect, because we will not replace everything with digital. That would be super stupid. That's why it's important to understand, it's almost like sound. In sound, you have the analog waves and you have the digital waves. You need to be able to see both and understand when shall we use what. And that's a little bit hard to do by yourself. You need other people that can help you to see when should we use what. Going back, for example, to 3D printing, for example, there were this time where people say, oh, everything is going to be printed, print is going to die, everything is going to be online. That's incorrect. That's not according to research. They are printing more newspapers today than they are printing the last year, the year before. And of course, like a McDonald's menu, it shouldn't be printed on paper. That's not sustainable. But maybe we need to understand that everything that is put on internet has a big problem. And that, for example, is trust. When people read an article online, they tend to read it a little bit faster than if they read the same article in a printed book. So if you are, for example, writing a thesis, and if you want to be more serious, you should sometimes print it in a printed copy, because, and the trick is to understand when should we print and when should it be analog and when should it be digital. Because someone once said that intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. For many years, I thought that it was Stephen Hawking that said that, and I like Stephen Hawking, but it's not Stephen Hawking. I did some research about this, and I can't find who actually said it, and I don't care, because I think this quote is super important. That everyone is talking about the new normal, There is no new normal. The only normal thing is that it's constantly changing. That's normal. And people fear change. If you ask people, do you like change? Most people will tell you the truth and say, I don't like it. But change is normal. But if we want people to participate, we can't use words that they fear. So I very seldom use the word change. I use the word improvement, because that's what we are looking for. We are not looking for change. We are looking for how can we improve this in a way that makes this better. And if you ask people, do you want to be part of change? They will probably say no. But if you ask people, can you see any way to improve this? Most people will give very good feedback. And this is much more inclusive. To summarize, when I was working at the museum, you can see here on the floor, they have not filled in the words, a little bit disappointed. But they have another funny thing in the museum. They allow the Nobel Prize laureates to sign underneath the cafeteria chairs. So when you go there to have a cup of coffee or tea, then you can turn the chairs upside down and you will see the Nobel Prize autographs, which I from the beginning thought, this is funny. And then I thought, this is actually a little bit boring. It's just autographs. So when I was responsible for this procedure, because no one wanted to do this because it was crazy asking Nobel Prize laureates to sign underneath the chair, one year a Nobel laureate asked me, can I write something else? After signing my name, can I write like a message? And I said, you can do whatever you want to. You're like a Nobel laureate. And those of you who are like, want to be like an employee, be a little bit careful, because sometimes when you make those quick decisions, it's not very popular. So I was not fired, but I was not allowed to participate in this anymore. Today, I only visit the museum once a year, and I'm now only eager to know, have the Nobel laureate written something underneath the chairs? And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. In 2017, Richard Henderson, one of the chemistry laureates, wrote, time consists of past, present, and future. Of these, future is the most interesting. And this is very important to stress, because I think most people and most organizations or universities, they get stuck in the present or the past. And then people tell me, well, that's normal because you can't get stuck in the future because the future hasn't happened yet. And then I tell people, well, since I have a background in linguistics, when you went to school, you were probably taught that the future is a noun, which is incorrect. The future is not a noun because the future doesn't just happen. The future is always created by people. And if something is created, the future is a verb. And if you look upon the future as a verb, you have two choices. You can do nothing, and then someone else will create your future. Or you roll up your sleeves, start working, and then you become part of creating the future. And to push your minds, this is a picture from the past. This is Albert Einstein. And the problem with this picture is that it's showing him alone, because most people think that he was sitting alone having this spark from God, which is incorrect. Remember the first picture I showed you when he was attending the conferences? Einstein loved to hang around with people that didn't have a background in mathematics and physics, because that's how he learned. He was not working alone. And we can't leave it up just to the geniuses. We need more people. This is the present. This is when companies like Google or Apple gathering people and they do things together. It could be a hackathon or whatever. This is a hackathon which Google drove, and they worked for a couple of days, ate pizza and drank sodas, and they developed Gmail. Very successful. But there is a problem with this picture, and that is trust. I don't believe most people will trust 2,000 people that they never met. So if I would predict the future, it looks like this. And you'll probably think that I'm stupid and this is like crazy. It's not about the robots taking over, but those of you who are a little bit nerdy as me, maybe you've seen the Transformer films or read the comics. There are within this Transformer universe something called combiners. They are robots that can form a huge robot. Someone becomes the torso and someone is the head and someone is the leg. They are transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary teams. The films, please stay away from them. They are not very good. Head wants to shoot and hand wants to shoot and head has a big ego. But in reality, when the teams is actually working, you can't beat it. Because it's all about the network. People tend to misunderstand the importance of networks today. They think that networks is about transactions. It's not. It's about sharing information. The more you give, the more you get back. Not in the short run, because there will always be people that access your network and they steal everything, but then they lose trust. And if you want to be in a network, you want to be in a network for the long run, and you want to be the person that are always giving, helping each other, because in the long run, that will come back to you. And that's how we need to push the entrepreneurial mindset. We need to help each other. We need to help each other. And we don't need to focus on titles or nationalities. It's all about pushing the envelope together. Because it's about connecting those different worlds. When I named it ideas, concept, and reality, I underlined "and", because those small words are super important. It's not just about disrespect and work and combine or disruption or digital or analog. It's also about those small words like and when and but, because if you don't use those small words, it doesn't make any sentence. You need to combine with those smaller units. Zooming in, we started here when I zoomed in on the university, but it's also important to be able to zoom out. This was a picture taken by the Swedish camera Hasselblad, the first picture from the moon landing. And it's not about technology here. What that picture showed for the first time was a different perspective. We could, for the first time in our lives, see the world from a different perspective. That's what was the big thing about this moon landing. And that was also the big thing about this presentation. I wanted to present and hopefully make you see things from a different perspective. Thank you so much for listening to me for almost 1.5 hours. And let's see if there is any questions before we're finishing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tobias. I don't know if you have heard me. I had some probably technical problem. I was a couple of seconds away, but I'm back now. Regarding the questions that were posted before, I will share with you one more, because I think that you have answered already the last question from our participant Zoran Pavlov. So I will just ask you the following question. Have you seen a company fail to adapt because of fear of the unknown, as a result fail altogether?
Can you take that question? I didn't hear the last one. Can you say it again?
Have you seen a company fail to adapt because of fear of the unknown, and as a result failed altogether? Yeah,
I've seen that happening many times, and I think that's a very common mistake that most companies do. They feel they don't know about the unknown. They don't know about the future. They become dead scared. They don't want to make any mistakes. And what's happening then is that they decide to do nothing. And this is very important to understand. If you decide to do nothing, that's also a decision. So if you decide, I will do nothing, then that's also a decision. And being a human is about making decisions. And if you don't make decisions, other people will make decisions, and then we will be left behind. And that is happening to many companies. They don't dare to experiment. They don't dare to push the envelope because they become too lazy and happy. And then they decide to do nothing because they say, oh, let's make other people try it, and then we can chip in when it works. But often by having that kind of mindset, then you are left behind, because then those people that actually did the work, they are so far ahead, so you can't do anything. And that's actually one of the biggest fears I have with this COVID virus, that before the COVID, a lot of companies and countries and organizations spoke about the importance of collaboration and helping each other. And then this pandemic hit us. And what happened? well, we closed our borders, we stopped working together, and it's not going to work in the long run. So I predict that
That was my question, actually. I wanted to ask you what data says, about COVID-19.
Those people that can create those bridges are going to be the people that are the success stories for the future. And once again, since there are so many smart people here, maybe some of you will do some great stuff and you will receive a Nobel Prize. That's fine. But the Nobel Prize is not just about winning a medallion, it's about creating a better world. And you can all do that as students or as entrepreneurs or as researchers. And if I can help in any way to create or improve or repair something, I think we need to understand that the more people that are allowed to help with those different things, the bigger chance of success. And it's also about spreading the risk, but also spreading the opportunity. Because when you fail, which you will do a lot of time, it's much nicer to fail together with a couple of other people than to fail alone. And it's also very much nice to win or to succeed together with other people than to be the only one who succeeds. That becomes very lonely. So once again, if anyone that has any questions afterwards, it's maybe a question that pops up tonight or whatever, please don't hesitate to contact me. I will try to answer those kind of questions, and I hope that I will see you in a more analog way in the future. I would love to meet you up in North Macedonia, and if someone has the passes Sweden, I would love to meet up.
Thank you, Tobias. First of all, I would like to share some feedback that it's already posted in chat. From our audience. They are really, really super satisfied. They think that this was an amazing presentation. And for that reason, on behalf of the University American College of Skopje, thank you once again very much for accepting this invitation and for your time and effort to inspire us. We'll share with the audience the evaluation, and then I'm sure that and then I will share with you the results. I'm sure that the people here will share their insights as well. As far as I'm concerned, I would love you to come here in Skopje and to be with us next year for the Startup Week, and we'll be in touch. And I think that the goal is achieved. Because this was the goal. I said at the beginning that this is a kind of event that should inspire us in these very, very difficult times for the students first, and then also for the professors, for my colleagues, for people here and everywhere. And we need this. We need this to survive the moment. And I think that we have achieved the goals. I said that each one can be an entrepreneur. And I said to change the community. Now I will correct myself, to improve, to create the better world. And to wrap up the session, I will use one of your sentences. There were many, many thoughts. I have written most of them, but I will choose the following. Creativity is super important, but it is about creating something beyond. So creativity, it's not just thinking differently, but it is the ability to think in a unique way, but also to execute the idea. So dear students, take the challenge. Thank you for your participation as well. Stay well, and see you soon with some other event or webinar.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, have a nice day, and thank you. Bye. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye, Tobias.
Bye.